Hi, everyone, and welcome to the 13th episode of Across STEM with YSI, a podcast where we explore how science and storytelling intersect across countries, cultures, and time. I'm your host, Amirali Banani, and today we're joined by someone who truly shows the power of resilience, advocacy, and science communication. And that's Mia Soviero, a neuroscience graduate from Barnard College at Columbia University, certified EMT, founder of Research Girl, a lot more things, and a passionate advocate for making STEM accessible to all. From coaching Special Olympics athletes in figure skating to launching an incredibly impactful nonprofit that's already achieved, certified nonprofit status, to building a science communication platform that reaches thousands across TikTok, YouTube, and Instagram. Mia's journey is proof that lived experience, curiosity, and community can drive change in STEM globally, particularly for the next generation of scientists and innovators. Beyond her academic achievements, Mia shares openly about her own journey with OCD, bipolar disorder, using her platform to break down stigma while showing that vulnerability and strength can go hand in hand. She's part researcher, part educator, part advocate, and 100% committed to empowering the next generation of scientists and storytellers as a true leader. These words wouldn't be enough to describe who she is. Mia is so much more and embodies that in everything she does. Today, we'll dive into Mia's story, what inspired her to start Research Girl, how her experiences as a patient helped shape her path as a scientist, the unique role of science communication in our time, and how she envisions the future of neuroscience, medicine, and advocacy. So, Mia, welcome to Across STEM with YSI. How are you doing today, and where are you at right now?
I'm good. Thank you so much for that kind introduction. Right now, I'm reporting live from New York City, and I'm excited to be here with you today.
Amazing. Sounds great. Now, you've shared that coaching the Special Olympics Maryland figure skating team during high school sparked your interest in pediatric neurology. Am I right?
Yeah.
Can you tell
Yeah.
us more about that experience and how it influenced your decision to study neuroscience?
Yeah, so I first got involved with the Special Olympics at age 12. I had been a figure skater since the age of about 6 years old. And so I had 6 years of figure skating experience behind me, and I decided to get involved volunteering. And the Special Olympics is a sports organization worldwide. It's a worldwide nonprofit that essentially gives sports education to individuals who are neurodivergent. So I worked for the Special Olympics and rose from being a volunteer to a head coach and program manager in their Maryland division. And I did that for 7 years. So I spent 7 years forming a really close bond with all of these different students from the age of 6 to the age of 30 who were neurodivergent and were trying to learn figure skating. And I got to interact with them and their families and really get to know neurodivergencies. And as part of my role as program manager and head coach, I was devising the curriculum for these students. So I was the one who had to be responsible for devising a curriculum that adapted to neurodivergent needs. And as part of that, I did all this research on neurodivergence and neurological disorders, how they come about, how best to approach them, and ways in which we can change our education system to accommodate them. And that's where my love for pediatric neuro first sparked. And that's where I really got a sense for, wow, I love research and I love interacting with patients and this population.
That is amazing. I mean, it's incredible how much you've done as part of Special Olympics. I was a volunteer for it, and I saw how much of a tremendous impact that would have on children,
Yeah.
especially. But you, as a head coach, I can imagine that's a completely different level and a completely different level of impact that you had. And also, it shaped your own path as well. It inspired you to pursue what you're interested in now. So it's really, really special to hear that. Now, you're originally from Maryland, but moved to New York for university, right?
Yes.
Going to one of the most prestigious schools in the world, Columbia University. How was that shift, and how did going to Columbia and New York change you?
Yeah, well, I've always wanted to live in New York since I was very young. And so getting into Columbia and being in New York for 4 years, actually ended up being 5 years, that I lived in New York, was life changing. truly. But it wasn't always great. When I first moved to New York, it was sort of a trial by fire. It was almost like hazing. People joke that New York hazes you when you first move there, and I would say that that's true based on my experience because I moved there during COVID in 2021 spring. When things were still closed off for COVID, there was still masking and quarantining and social distancing. And when I moved to New York, I was actually required to quarantine in a dorm, just a dorm room. Couldn't leave my dorm room for 2 weeks. And so my experience when I first moved to New York was actually one of isolation and not getting to know the city and not actually feeling as though I had moved there. And I remember just looking out my window and being like, oh my God, there's all these buildings. I'm in a city now. I was not from a city. So it was a little jarring. But once I finally was out of quarantine and I was able to get out into New York and see it, it was just as incredible as I imagined. And it's really shaped my journey because there are so many more opportunities here and everyone is so much more fast paced and ambitious. And so it really fuels your own ambition to be in New York.
Absolutely. And on that, from what I've seen in your videos, at least, you love New York a lot.
Yes.
Do you see yourself living in NYC in the future, or do you have your sights set elsewhere?
Totally. New York is the dream. I love it there. I've never felt so connected to a place before. And like I said, it just fuels me. It's very inspiring to constantly be around people who are achieving this higher goal or working towards a higher goal. And so New York gives you that energy and that spark. And I feel like I could really use that for the rest of my career to propel me forward. So I'd love to stay here and eventually practice here someday would be great.
Amazing. I mean, it's a great city, and I am glad that you're pursuing your dreams in such an amazing place with so many tremendous opportunities. Now, what inspired you to start Research Girl, and what gap did you see that made you say, this is needed and I'm going to build it?
Yeah, so I grew up low income. I'm the first person in my family to pursue science or medicine. So I went into my undergraduate degree completely blind without any resources, financial resources, or the resources of family members and connections who could help me, who had done this before. And I'm also neurodivergent. So I experienced a lot of barriers when I was getting my undergraduate degree and noticed a lot of things. I think I had assumed that because I was going to one of the best institutions in the world, that there would be a plethora of resources and that those resources would be given to everyone who had gotten into that university equally. But it wasn't the case. I found that as a low-income student specifically, it was really hard for me to get the resources that I saw other peers have. And there was a huge gap between the resources that me and my other low-income and first-gen peers received compared to individuals who were maybe legacies in medicine, or they had parents who were professors in medicine or research or science. And upon noticing that, I noticed that throughout my entire undergraduate degree. And so once I was a senior, I was really itching to do something about it. And Research Girl really just started. It was just supposed to be this free website of all of the resources that I had collected from doing my own research and learning through failures and learning through my own navigation of the system as the first person in my family to do so. I thought, wouldn't it be useful if I could just put that all on a website and refer people to that? Because as a content creator, I get hundreds of questions in my DMs every week that are asking all these questions about research and science and medicine. And they're usually from first-gen and low-income students who don't know how to navigate it. So I thought, I'll just refer them to this resource from now on. And then it blossomed into the thing it is today, which is much greater than what I had anticipated. I hadn't anticipated it would get the reach that it has or grow into a program with as many resources as we offer.
Yeah, I mean, Research Girl is already huge. I mean, it's tremendous how much it's grown and how much of an impact it's had, even though it was born in 2024, which is insane to me because at first when I found out about Research Girl and was exploring all the mentorship programs and workshops and research and everything you've done, I thought this nonprofit has been around for years. You've just done so much. And then a bit later, I realized you've actually just been around for less than a year at the time, at least. Now it's a year and a few months, but still incredibly young. So I'm very, very glad that U7 Initiative and Research Girl partnered back in March. And already we've had the Coding in R workshop provided by organization and also the ongoing Summer 2025 Independent Research Group. And I look forward to running more programs together. Now, from this, my question is, what's been the secret to Research Girl's success and impact, and how did it grow so tremendously in just the span of a year or less than a year even?
Yeah, well, the number one thing is all the people who have gotten involved. None of this would be possible. None of the mentorship we've provided or the lectures or the workshops would be possible if it weren't for all of these accomplished scientists who have already gone through the process of navigating STEM or navigating medicine, who have decided, I would like to volunteer my time for this organization and I'd like to help other students that are exactly the person I was 4 or 5 years ago. And we've had over 350 mentors sign up with us and participate in the mentorship programs with us who are accomplished scientists and who have made that decision and who have decided to help us out. So none of this would be possible if it weren't for them. And really, I don't see Research Girl having become the success that it has become if it weren't for those individuals getting involved.
Yeah, and that's the beauty with organizations like this. It's
Totally.
from all the contributions that come from the people who join it and who contribute and who kind of move towards a common goal of making science, STEM more accessible, research more accessible, and to provide programs for students whose maybe, like, let's say their parents didn't have those same opportunities, right? So
Yeah.
it's truly making a big impact. And what's been the most rewarding moments in this journey so far for you?
I think there are a lot of moments that come to mind of specific student stories that I've been made aware of. Like the students have come to me and they've told me about their experience with Research Girl. But I think the one that sticks with me the most is our very first mentorship program ever. The first season we ever had. We were a brand new organization. We had a student who was participating in the program, and she was first gen, low income. She was an immigrant, and she was interested in psychology research, but she had never done any research before. Well, she came out of that first mentorship program season with not only research skills so that she could conduct her own research and conduct research in an accredited lab, but her mentor had also helped connect her with an actual research job that was a paid full-time position in research. And she ended up doing that job. She worked it. She became a mentor herself in our program, and now she teaches other students, and she rose in the ranks, and now she works as our mentorship coordinator, and she helps me run all of the mentorship programs. So she had this journey in science where she not only came into the program with no research experience, but she got the resources she needed, she got a job, and now she helps other students do the same and helps us pass that along to other students. So that's really like my favorite story, because it shows someone who actually successfully went through our program. And they didn't just get a job out of it, but they also turned around and started helping others as well.
That is incredible. That's honestly incredible. Wow. I mean, it shows the impact and the way that Research Girl can basically change someone's life and their career.
Yeah.
And what are your future plans now for Research Girl? Do you see yourself continuing to lead it from here and, into the future, like 5-10 years from now?
Yeah. Well, I'm a big advocacy person. Like I said, I've been involved in advocacy organizations since I was 12 years old. And so I have the long-term career goal of being not just one thing, but multiple things. The real dream would be to be a physician scientist. So MD, PhD, be able to incorporate medicine and research together, and also do advocacy work as like a side hustle. So I'd love to continue to work with Research Girl and maybe not lead it in the far future when I'm a physician, but be able to contribute greatly to Research Girl and keep it going, make sure that it keeps going, and we keep providing students these resources. But I know that advocacy will be in my future for the rest of my life.
Amazing. And you'll always be the founder of Research Girl. So
yes.
it's like your child. You want to continue
Yes.
to care for it and stay with it in the future. Don't have to lead it, but I mean, being part of it is still I know it's a key priority for you. As a science communicator with thousands of followers across platforms, how do you see digital storytelling changing the way people learn and engage across science?
Yeah, well, we're seeing this. There's this great phenomenon that has existed since the age of digital storytelling and media on the internet, on YouTube, TikTok, different forms of social media. And that is that for the first time in history, people are learning about things that they didn't have the opportunity to know were options for them through these mediums. So, students are learning about career pathways and opportunities for them that they didn't even know were options, they didn't even know existed. For example, child neurology. A lot of people didn't know that that was a thing. And I get DMs from people saying, hey, I just found out through you that neurology is a thing, child neurology is a thing, and that's what I want to do. Or I've had a lot of students come to me, and I've actually encountered students in person who have approached me, and they've said, you're the reason why I chose neuroscience, or you're the reason why I applied to Columbia or Barnard. And so there's a responsibility when you're a person who has that impact and who has that platform of digital storytelling to tell the stories responsibly. And it's important that as a person with that platform, you're communicating the right ideas, because it really does have that big of an impact. So I see digital storytelling and science communication as a tool that can be really positive if it's used in the right way, and can positively influence all of these students who maybe were underrepresented, didn't think that they belonged in science, to pursue it anyway, if it's done correctly.
And you're a great communicator, so it makes sense that you're impacting all these people and they're coming up to you asking you about all these different things that you're inspiring them to do, which is incredible. And I think it's one of the beauties of social media.
Thank you.
You've been very open about your own mental health journey. Now, my question is, how has your personal experience shaped the way you approach neuroscience and advocacy from that?
Yeah. Oh, it's shaped everything. I mean, to be human is to want to be human is to have an interest in things that are more impactful to you, right? We seek out things that have importance to us. And that has been true for my neuroscientific research. A lot of my research that I've performed has been influenced by my own life. So I started out, when I first started doing scientific research, I was poached from high school to NYU to work on a clinical study, and that was in migraine. And I had experienced migraine since I was 9 years old. I grew up as a pediatric neurology patient. So that first experience with research was informed entirely by my own experiences. Like I chose that lab, I worked for that lab because of my own experiences. And then I pursued memory research, specifically deficits in memory that are related to abnormal neuroscience, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And I've been diagnosed with, in my life, PTSD, depression, and anxiety. And I personally had experienced some memory issues and issues with being able to remember vividness or details. And so that was exactly what I researched for about 3 years at Columbia, and was part of my thesis. I actually wrote my thesis on memory deficits and the ways that they're related to depression. So it has really influenced my neuroscientific journey, and I want to continue to be able to do research that informs the population that I have been in my life, because you feel a connection to the patient population that you're helping if you're researching a disorder or a neurological phenomenon that you yourself have experienced. And I think that makes you a better researcher if you have empathy for the population you're helping.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's remarkable. So not only was Special Olympics a key factor in what influenced you to pursue your research in neuroscience, but also your mental health journey.
Totally. Yeah.
To, as you said, not just understand or empathize with patients better, but also to kind of understand your own past and improve the outcomes and the lives of people who are living with these disorders themselves. And I think that's absolutely remarkable. Let's move on to our first segment. If you could witness any neuroscience discovery or medical breakthrough in history, what would it be and why?
I would have loved to witness the discovery of neuroplasticity, the idea that our brains are not static, but they are complex and moldable, because that changed everything about neuroscience, about neurodevelopmental conditions, about psychiatry and psychology. And it changed how we approach all of those things. It gave us hope for treatments and cures. So it gave us the hope that these things that are neurological disorders or psychiatric disorders are not necessarily fixed. They're not necessarily something that you will never be able to change. So I really enjoy neuroplasticity. I think it's one of the greatest and coolest discoveries that we've ever made. I would have loved to have been there when they found that.
That would be amazing. Yeah, I mean, I'm super fascinated by that as well. So I can't imagine like how much of a breakthrough it would have been to
Yeah.
just witness something like this happening, to see that neurons are not just static, they can actually grow and form new connections. Now, 50 years into the future, what do you hope we figured out about the brain or neurological disorders? And what breakthroughs do you dream of seeing within your own lifetime?
I hope that we've discovered more about the development of the brain, because we actually don't know a whole lot about it. We know some things that happen neuroanatomically, and things that happen psychologically, but we don't know a whole lot about it. So I would love to learn more about that, specifically how childhood adverse experiences can impact neurodevelopment, and the development of neurological and psychological disorders later in life. That's something that I'm really interested in, due to personal experience and due to my professional experience in research. Yeah, right now we know some about the impact of trauma on the brain, but there's a lot that we don't have conclusive evidence on.
A lot. There's a ton.
Yeah.
But I'm sure, especially with AI and the rate that technology and research is advancing at the moment, we will discover a lot more about it. Even in 5 years' time, 10 years' time, 50, it might be a different story.
Yeah, hopefully.
Moving on, neurological disorders, as you said, are really close to your heart. And what areas of neuroscience do you see as the most urgent or exciting frontiers for the next decade from now?
Yeah, right now, two topics that are really hot in neuroscience and that we're discovering a lot about right now, or in the last 5 or 10 years have really accelerated, include neuroimmunology, and specifically how it relates to cancer and brain cancers, and also the gut-brain axis, how the gut and the brain work together. And actually, another question that I think you were going to ask later was my fun fact about science, but this is related to the gut-brain interaction. They have found that there are 86 billion neurons in your brain, but your gut has sort of a mini brain that has 500 million neurons in it. And it's sometimes referred to as a second brain. So right now there's a lot of research that's being done on how the neurons in your gut and your gut health can impact your mental health severely. There's specifically a lot of research about how depression is influenced by your gut health. And that's a really cool sector of research.
Yeah, absolutely. I've read about it as well, and it's tremendous. I mean, just from the composition of microbes in your guts, just the biome, how that influences your brain, how that influences certain disorders, it's tremendous. And I think the link between the two through the gut-brain axis, if we can understand that better, it can lead to the cures, treatments for a lot of disorders. So it will be tremendous. That's a very interesting area of research. Now, as someone who blends science, advocacy, and communication, where do you see yourself focusing most in your early career? So around now, research, public outreach, or a hybrid of both of them?
Yeah, well, in the early stages of my career, I really focused on research. I did 3 years of research, first at NYU and then Columbia. And so that was the predominant focus. of my career. Now I would say it's shifted a lot more to advocacy and public service with Research Girl and my nonprofit. That's been the real focus because right now I'm preparing for medical school. And so I figured what better way to spend the time while I'm preparing for medical school and while I'm studying for the MCAT and doing everything else than to offer up these resources that I have collected over the years to other students and sort of give back. I'm looking back a lot right now on my college years, my undergraduate years, and what could have benefited me as a student who was going in, like I said, totally blind into science and medicine. And so it's a big period of time for me. I think this is my era of reflection and then giving back based on that reflection.
Interesting. So, I mean, you're using this time really well. I mean, to grow Research Girl, to make an impact through it, and also preparing for medical school at the same time. And yeah, I mean, it's kind of, as you said, like a period of reflection and growth, and trying to kind of, make a big impact before going into medicine yourself,
Yeah.
and growing your organization during this time as you study for med school. So you're already balancing nonprofit with leadership, obviously through Research Girls, science communication, and a strong academic background. How do you envision your career unfolding in the next few years? There's medical school on the horizon, I can imagine. You're going to give the MCATs to get there, and there's Research Girl at the same time that you're still running and will be running probably for a couple more years at least. Where do you see your career unfolding from here?
Yeah. Well, within the next, I mean, I would like to pursue an MD PhD. That is unfortunately 8 to 10 years. It's a very
Yes.
long degree.
Yeah, very long.
And so for the next decade or so, I guess it'll look like me getting that MD PhD. Or if I end up going just the MD route, MD in residency, while trying to balance science communication and making educational content and playing some type of role in Research Girl and advocacy. I'd like to stick doing that as long as possible, as long as I can manage to do all of those things, because it's really like at the forefront of all of those things for me is advocacy, whether it's science communication or medicine or research. The whole point of doing all of that is advocacy for people,
Yes.
for underserved populations. And so that really should be at the forefront of whatever it is that I'm doing. I want to try to have a foot in that world for as long as possible.
Very, very cool. Very cool. And you've been doing it since you were 12. So
Yeah.
you have the history and you continue to do it, which is amazing. And we need
Yeah.
more of it. So thank you for being such a leader in that sense. Now, let's move on to our second segment. What I'm going to ask you is not the typical myth about some supposed scientific fact, but because you've given a lot of presentations and led sessions on a variety of things, I want to get your thoughts on this. A lot of people think science communication, like speaking and presenting, is less serious than doing formal research, like experimenting and writing papers and such. Do
Yeah.
you think that's a myth? And how would you reframe the importance of communication for scientists today?
I would say science communication plays a huge role in whether or not people get into science at all. A lot of people get into science due to early exposure. Think Bill Nye. If you ever watched Bill Nye as a kid,
Yes,
or you
yes.
grew up and you were interested in science as a kid, so you watched Bill Nye, or maybe you didn't know about science and then you watched an episode of Bill Nye and suddenly you were like, wait, this is kind of cool. So science communication plays a huge role in whether or not we have future researchers and we have future scientists. And right now, it's especially important because social media is so influential. You know that because brands are using it for all of their marketing, and it's one of the most important things right now for getting somebody to buy something or do something. Social media marketing is the thing. It's hot right now. And so if we can mold future scientists by telling them, despite your origins, despite where you came from, your background, whether you have connections or money, if we convince them that they can do it we're more likely to get a scientific field in the future that is composed of diverse individuals with different experiences rather than a homogenous group. So it's science communication. While you can say, it's like kind of more childish or playful or not as important as like hard science research. Science communication, I think right now in this era that we're in, the digital age, it's helping to inform what science is going to look like in the future because it's building scientists. So in that way, it's actually quite impactful and important.
Yeah, quite impactful. And also it leads to, especially through social media, a lot of people will see it. A lot more people may see something like, a video you post about something in science or a presentation, a seminar, than a paper that you publish. That's just the reality of what it is now.
Yeah.
So you can't just overlook and undermine its importance because it is truly significant in the modern world, and it'll become even more significant. So it's absolutely crucial and almost just as important as hardcore research itself. Let's move on to a few more questions. From your perspective, from leading Research Girl, what role do you see youth playing in shaping the future of neuroscience and STEM more broadly?
Yeah, well, I've already touched a little bit upon how I think the students right now who are being influenced to do science or not do science are going to shape what our scientific field and what our scientists look like in the future. I think additionally, and I've spoken about this with the Connecticut Science Center, which predominantly targets young children to get into science, which is that children have a unique imagination and innovation and a brain that has endless possibilities. They haven't been taught to restrict their thinking yet, which means that they hold the potential for all of these out-of-the-box thoughts about science and ways in which we can improve things, create cures. And so it's really important that we get students into science as early as possible so they can begin thinking creatively and critically about scientific concepts. They're sort of like this untapped potential of new innovations in science. You might have seen, like, there are all of these scientific contests around the world where students get to submit their ideas for cures and treatments and inventions. And a lot of those students who win those contests end up going forward and introducing a new concept or invention to the world. So it's really important that we're helping these young kids thrive and get into science. I think the youth are very impactful in how science is going to look in the future.
Because they are the future.
Exactly.
And we need to provide these opportunities for them. It's our responsibility for that. And it's great to see that there are more and more opportunities coming out for any child who wants to get into science. And that's also why we see increasing interest in science globally, which I think is beautiful to see.
Yeah.
And for you personally, you bridge so many worlds: science, communication, advocacy, and personal storytelling. What do you hope that more youth can do like you at the intersection of all of these to make a difference in not just their own lives, but also the lives of others?
Yeah, well, I think it's important that as humans, we're not just one thing, and we don't give up on the other things that we love to support just one thing. So I do a lot of work that is interdisciplinary. I've had a cooking show that was a neuroscience cooking show, so I combined cooking with neuroscience. I've written 2 novels that involved science, whether that was neuroscience or physics. I do science communication as one of my jobs, and I get to utilize filmmaking skills for that. So I do a lot of things that combine interests. And I think it's important that we let our youth know that even if they're interested in science, that doesn't mean they have to discredit the arts and say, well, I'm interested in science, so therefore I can't do art, or I can't take on these artistic endeavors and hobbies. That's not true. You can combine them. You can do things that involve both art and science. And it's actually really common that art and science are used in combination for many things in many different fields. So I think encouraging the youth to not see science as exclusionary and see it more as this welcoming domain that anyone can get involved in science, anyone can pursue it. regardless of if they like the arts too, or regardless of where they came from and what their background
Hmm. And
is
if you
really
approach
important.
science with that interdisciplinary approach or
Yeah,
perspective, it's a game changer. And it
totally.
makes it so much more impactful in your own life and the lives of others. And I think it's the new model for how science will look like in the modern world and in the future. So that's some very, very good advice that you gave there.
Thanks.
Looking ahead 10 to 15 years, where do you see yourself ideally? Academia, nonprofit leadership, clinical work, a medical doctor, or perhaps a new intersection of all three? You said you're very multidisciplinary. So where do
Yeah.
you see yourself?
Well, like I said, MD PhD is about 10
Yeah.
years. So in about 10 to 15 years, I hope to essentially become, if you're not familiar with her, Yasmin Kaku. She's a child neurologist and she's a professor in pediatrics. And she is also the editor in chief of Elsevier
Oh,
medical
wow.
journal. So she does a lot of things at once, and she gets to combine teaching and working with students with medicine with research. And
Mhm.
that she gets to do everything. That's sort of my dream. I actually had the opportunity to speak with her recently, and that was just so incredible. And I really look up to her. So I'd like to become someone like her who is able to incredibly balance all of these different things and form sort of a hybrid career that uses all of those different skill sets and gets to interact with all these different people. That would be my goal.
What a goal. I hope you achieve it. Now, moving on to our final segments. This is a STEM fun fact from your country. So you're American. And to wrap things up, tell me a fun fact about STEM and research in the US, or it could be about something connected to Maryland where you grew up, you know. So this fun fact could be about innovation, culture, or anything like the research that goes on. Just tell me any fun facts.
Yeah. Well, I think my fun fact that I mentioned earlier was not necessarily specific to Maryland or to
Okay.
the US, but I'll reiterate my fun fact and then I'll tell you a fun fact about STEM in
Sure.
Maryland. So my favorite fact right now about neuroscience is the fact that there are 86 billion neurons in your brain, but 500 million in your gut. I just think there's a lot of research that's going on right now that's really influential about the way that the gut can impact mental health. And I've also seen some research that is equally cool, that is about how your bones can relate to your mental health. Very cool stuff. Fun fact about STEM in Maryland is that Bethesda, Maryland is actually the headquarters of the NIH. So
Mhm.
I grew up real close to there, and I would drive by the NIH all the time. I worked across the street from the NIH when I worked at Walter Reed National Military Medical Center. And so there's sort of this hub of scientists and engineers in Maryland. So I grew up, although I grew up from not a STEM background at all, um, Maryland is kind of a hub for scientists.
That is right, actually. I just realized the NIH is based there.
Yeah,
So, and it's very cool that you work just across from it. I mean, that's
yeah.
tremendous. And yeah, wow, that's really cool to hear. So that brings us to the end of today's episode of Across Time with YSI. A huge thank you to Mia Soviero for joining me and sharing such a powerful and inspiring journey. From your neuroscience studies at Columbia to your work as an EMT to launching Research Girl and all the amazing things you're doing with that organization, and to building an incredible community online around science and mental health advocacy. You've shown us how resilience, creativity, and authenticity can come together to change the way people think about STEM. Mia, is there anything else you'd like to share with the audience?
Just that no matter where you're from or what your background has been, science is for you. And if you think that maybe you don't have the right qualifications for science, or um, I used to think that I wasn't good enough at science to do science because I wasn't one of these people who was naturally born with scientific intellect.
Mhm.
If you think that it's not for you, you'd be wrong. Um, Bob Ross has a quote that's about how Anything can be learned, any talent can be learned. You're not necessarily born with it. And I would agree with that. I would say that you can hone a skill over time, no matter what that skill is, even if it's science. So if science is what you want to pursue, just work at it and you'll be able to do it.
Absolutely. Couldn't have said it better. Science is for everyone. You don't have to be gifted. But with the opportunities that exist today, it's something that I think everyone should be a part of to some extent. So don't sleep on it. Now, to our listeners, as always, if you enjoyed this episode, which I'm sure you did, make sure to follow Across STEM with YSI on Spotify, rate us, and check us out on socials to stay updated. We've got more inspiring guests like Mia coming your way, so stay tuned. Until next time, stay curious, stay inspired, and keep exploring STEM across borders and time. Thank you so much, Mia.
Thank you.